here. So a very warm welcome, and Finlay has just started the recording, and I hope everybody's okay with that. Just helps with the note. A very warm welcome to this meeting of the Community Planning Partnership Board on the 6th of December 2023. And the public session of the CPP board will be recorded and published on YouTube after the meeting. If anyone has any objection to that, please let me know, and we can deal with that. But it will be published as a public meeting. We don't have any private papers. So what I'll do is ask Finlay in the first instance if you can take the sediment, please, Finlay.
So it was just to ask if anyone could declare any members' interests in. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Stilton.
No, take the sediment, please, and if you just have any apologies, you could just share them now.
Okay, I'll take the apologies. Bear with me 2 seconds. Please excuse me if my voice goes. I think I've got extreme in the cold at the moment. So I have apologies from Professor Caroline Hiscox, NHS Grampian and Vice Chair of the Aberdeenshire CPP Board. Andrew Wright, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. However, I have got Craig Wallace substituting Andrew. I have apologies from Dan Shaw, Aberdeenshire Voluntary Action. I have apologies from Yvonne Boyd, Skills Development Scotland, Fiona McCallum, Aberdeenshire Council, Grant Moyer, Cairngorms National Park, Jacqueline Lynn, Sports Scotland, Kirsty Chalmers, Nestrans, Matt Lochley, Scottish Enterprise, Pam Milliken, Aberdeenshire Health and Social Care Partnership, and Rab Dixon at Nestrans.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Philippa is here in Pam. I'm aware of that substitution. So in any case, thank you all very much indeed. Can I ask any members if you've got declaration of interest, please? No declarations based on the agenda before us, so there's nothing there to record. Finlay, thank you very much. Item 3 on the pack was the public sector equality duty, and I will read that out actually. I'm going to do that in future. So the public sector equality duty asks us to consider, and if so does, and adopt the following resolution: to have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation, advance equality of opportunity between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it, and foster good relations between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it. Where an integrated impact assessment is provided, we should consider its contents and take those into account when reaching a decision. Can we all agree to that, please? I'll take silence as an agreement. That's fine. Thank you very much. The minute of the last Community Planning Partnership Board on the 13th of September has been attached and is item 4 on our agenda, and that is there for our approval. Can we agree that that's a correct note of the meeting, please, in the first instance? Or if you don't agree, you can pop your hand up.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything arising from that minute that you would like to raise which is not on the agenda today? And there's nothing, so that is approved and will be taken forward on that basis. Thank you very much. Item 4.1 is the action sheet, so that is attached from page 9 of your report. Again, if anyone has any issues you wanted to raise on page 9, just pop your hand up. Councillor Bailey's joined us, Finlay. Neil, have you got any declaration of interest at all?
No, I do not.
No, okay. And are you content to adopt the public sector equality duty, please?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, the item 4.1 is the action sheet. So if anyone has anything you want to raise on that, please indicate that when you're in. Rob, is there anything from your point of view that you want to flag up? There are some timescales that are not included here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think in terms of the first action that we have there, we need to just work through exactly how that's going to report back through. I have been working with Angela Keith around what that would look like, and I know Kate's team have been as well. So I will ensure that that has progressed and hopefully back to the next board. Those that are outstanding in terms of timescales, we are pushing to get those timescales provided so that we have a clearer idea if they are not covered off by the next board meeting, that we know exactly when they will be updated and what that timescale looks like, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's fine, and there are quite a number of completed items on the log here. So is there anything from that point of view, Rob, that requires further follow-up?
I think that there's a number that are to be followed up. So they've been closed on the basis that that things will be circulated or updated to you. But we'll ensure that that happens to ensure that they are closed appropriately rather than with anything left outstanding. And we will, yeah, I'll make sure that's all covered off. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, please, because it needs to be tracked just to make sure that actually it does complete. Plus the actual action, there's lots of updates, briefings, focus sessions being scheduled, but no other information. So just to be clear that all of that has been please, if I can track. Yep, that's fine. Thank you very much. Any other points on the action log at all from anyone? Everybody happy? Graham, please.
Yeah, it's not on the action log. I don't know if it's I need to replace my headphones, but I'm struggling to hear everybody speaking. Very, very crackly. I've unplugged my headphones, plugged them back in again, but if it's just me, I'll try and find something else. But is it just me?
No, it's general.
Right. So is there a solution anybody can suggest?
Yeah, and here's me coming in with problems. Sorry, Chair. I don't have a solution. I just want to make sure it's not my it's not my headphones, but I wasn't able to speak hear you at all, Chair.
Okay. So
You're coming across clear now, though.
All right. Okay. I'll try and speak clearly. Is that better or not for folks? Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for raising that. Just please shout up if it changes again. Rob's looking a bit perplexed.
It started to go again. So unfortunately, I don't know if you turn your camera off, Chair, if that might assist. It seems to be when you're speaking, there's the crackling sound coming through.
Is that better? I'm not using my camera on the main platform. So is that better at all?
Unfortunately not, Chair. You're still crackling away.
Okay, if I revert back to using my phone, I'm going to leave this. Take a couple of minutes, leave this and just use the phone. Hello, is that any better? Yeah, okay. So it's the other device that's the issue. Thank you. Sorry about that. Right, okay. So
Sorry, Councillor Stirling, I think it's still you at the moment.
You'll make sure that all the outputs are tracked and the completed section.
Yes, absolutely, Chair. I'll make sure that we keep this on for next time as it is, but with those updates in it. So where we've said we will have focus sessions and they're being scheduled, we will have a date for those focus sessions penciled in. Where we've said we're issuing information, we'll put the date of when we have issued that information. So we'll make sure it's absolutely clear in the updates. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Is the sound better now? Hello?
It's coming and going.
Yeah. You're freezing up, Councillor Sterling.
Okay, well, pardon? Is that better? No, I think, Rob, could you perhaps just take over and if I can see if I can adjust this, please?
Yep, absolutely, no problem at all, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, there's not a verbal update from Chair of the Executive, being me. There was no executive. I think it was in November. We had a shortage of items, so we did not sit in November, and we are sitting towards the end of January. So we will hopefully have an update coming through then. If anybody does have anything to go into the agenda of the Executive through your teams, through the partnership, really grateful to receive those items just to beef things up a little bit there. But we will be having focus sessions as well as we move on. Susan, can I take you in just now?
Yeah, I was just wondering because we had our development session of the community planning board it was a couple of weeks ago or so, and I'm just wondering, will the output of that go to the next executive group perhaps before coming back here? Yes, Kate's nodding.
Yep, there we
Kate.
go. I was going to defer to Kate on that one anyway, so I'm quite happy to go with that answer. That's absolutely fine. Yes, we'll take it back to the executive and back to here. Can I move on to item 6, which is reducing poverty, the LOIP update report, and we have Amanda to take us through that.
Thank you. I wasn't planning on going through it in a lot of detail, but as ever, I'd quite like to draw attention to a couple of the achievements.
Sorry to interrupt, Amanda. We can barely hear you.
Hear me better now? No. Okay. I will come out and go back in because I'm not quite sure what the issue is, so I will try again. Apologies. Rob, you maybe want to go to the next item?
I'll come back round to you, Amanda. I will go to George in item 7. Thanks, Amanda, for the health and wellbeing update. George.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully the update on the HEAL strand of the LOIP priority is a bit clearer actually in terms of the audio. But yes, just to draw your attention to a few key points from the report and what we've tried to do in terms of the reporting on the HEAL strand of the LOIP priority this time round is to take on board the feedback from the last couple of board meetings actually, just in terms of the style of information presented and the detail of the information that's presented. So you see we've chosen to chiefly focus on 4 projects that are part of the HEAL action plan at the moment, and those sit under 3 of the strategic priorities: physical activity, mental health and wellbeing, and food accessibility actually. And you'll see a kind of short update in relation to each of those projects in your report. So under the physical activity theme, we're highlighting a kind of recent development in relation to the appointment of an active campus coordinator at the Fraserburgh campus, Nesco Fraserburgh campus. This is part of a series of similar posts at campuses throughout Scotland, funded by Sport Scotland and Scottish Student Sport actually. Series of posts which will be funded for 2 years in the first instance. The emphasis is really on those post holders supporting students to become more active on campus and to maintain levels of physical activity. So the post holder for Aberdeenshire at the Fraserburgh campus has been in post since September of this year, and will be working closely with the HEAL strategic planning group around their programme of work, and they have indicated that they'll come back to the HEAL strategic planning group at the end of this calendar year with an update on the first 3 months of that post being in place. But I think that will be an interesting one to watch, actually, in terms of the impact that will likely have on a specific community at the NESCO campus in Fraserburgh. Moving on to the kind of project that we've highlighted under our mental health and wellbeing theme, we're highlighting the recently completed Aberdeen University Body Image project that was led by a postgraduate student and completed in the summer of this year, actually. And essentially, it was a piece of engagement with partners on the HEAL strategic planning group and wider, in actual fact, really to try and ascertain what some of the kind of facilitators and barriers might be in relation to health eating and active living, particularly with an emphasis and a focus on children and adolescents. And you'll see in your report that there's a link provided to a short film, which is well worth taking a look at if you've got 10 or 15 minutes. Actually gives a nice update on the project and the key findings from that. But they included issues related to, in terms of barriers, issues related to low confidence and self-esteem as potentially being barriers to engaging with physical activity, health eating. The influence of social media was highlighted by many partners. And in terms of some of the kind of facilitators, partners were highlighting the kind of key role that a range of service providers have just in terms of normalising physical activity, participation in health eating within the context of their service delivery. And you'll see under the food accessibility theme, we're highlighting 2 projects to update you on this time round. There's the Confidence to Cook initiative, which is an initiative which aims to support and train partners to deliver practical cooking sessions to kind of build food skills and confidence. And that's supported in North Aberdeenshire, as you'll see in your report, by quite a wide range of partners, ranging from the health visiting team in the north to NESCO, the North Food Bank, the Mod Resource Centre, and so forth. And the delivery is really through a mix of group activities, which would tend to be delivered by partners like the North Food Bank, and also some one-to-one delivery, which the health visitors adopt as an approach in the north. And the second project under that stream that we've highlighted is the Henry Healthy Families project, which is a joint initiative in terms of the delivery between the public health team within the Health and Social Care Partnership, the dietetic service, and Home Start North East, actually. And that's been running for a year or so, actually, with some very positive feedback from families of children who are 0 to 5 who've participated in that programme. And you'll see in appendix, I think it's appendix 1 and 2, some further detail on some of those projects that we've highlighted. So be very happy to pick up any specific questions you may have and to get some feedback, whether you find that style of reporting more helpful than what's perhaps been provided beforehand.
Thanks, George. Just open it up for any input that partners may have and while they're thinking. Really interested to see what comes next in terms of the mental health and wellbeing aspects and the outcomes and outputs that come from the next phase of work around that, given the findings that are detailed in the report. I think that's really interesting, but also a really key one as we move forward.
Indeed, yeah.
So, do you have any comments, views, feedback on the reporting style that they wish to table? Silence is contentment with this one. A good report. I say lots of information and really keen to see the next steps and how it moves on. Susan.
Yeah, really helpful to see the range of activity that's underway, George. I just wonder, given the whole system approach around the healthy eating, active living, if there is something about setting this within the context of, so this is our approach, we're reporting on this bit of it today, so that gives us the sense of this isn't the totality but just a little bit of it. And also where we do get up-to-date data, I think that is also helpful to report. Again, looking at the level of intervention that is being achieved and is it successful. We've got a long way to go if we're going to tackle the scale of the issue, particularly around obesity within Aberdeenshire. So I think helpful to put it in context and something about an eye to how might we be looking to scale this up given the scale of need we've got in our communities.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, that's helpful. Can certainly ensure that we do that moving forward. And today we've chosen to really provide an update just on 4 particular projects or programmes of work. And those are 4 of the 30 odd that are part of the kind of wider HUE action plan. But yeah, certainly happy to take that feedback on board.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, George. Councillor Sterling, you're back, hopefully.
I don't know if I am or not.
No, we're still losing you, I'm afraid.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to have to listen then.
You were slightly clearer there.
All right. Well,
You
I'm
maybe need to not move.
not to. Is that okay, or is it just torture?
You're coming and going, I'm afraid. We've lost you again. The crackling has returned, I'm afraid. So with that in mind, and I'm not seeing any other hands, so thank you very much for that one, George. We will cycle back round to Amanda and reducing poverty, please.
Thanks, Rob. I'm hoping I am clear. That's an ace. Thank you. So reducing poverty priority report in front of you. I was not planning to go through it in great detail, but I did want to highlight a couple of achievements and then seek a little bit of direction from the board. So in terms of our key achievements, I wanted to confirm that we are one of 8 partnerships who have been awarded the Cash First funding from the Scottish Government. That's a partnership approach, so working with the likes of the North Aberdeenshire Food Bank, Trussell Trust, housing colleagues all across the board. We will be awarded 200,000 as a result of this award, which we are using to really try and understand and embed a Cash First partnership within Aberdeenshire. We know why that is the right thing to do. The evidence of our experts of experience tell us why that's the right thing to do, but it is quite a different model because we are quite embedded with that crisis intervention through things like food parcels, and it is about how we move forward from that and build on things like our mobile pantries, those approaches for good affordable food, so very much tying in again with the HEAL. It is around some of that sustainability. So we are really excited by this. We have got a coordinator post that will come in to work across us all to help us manage this, and positively we will also get dedicated research from the Scottish Government, so we'll get access to that expertise, and of course we will keep the board updated on progress with this particular partnership. It ties in very nicely with another national partnership that we are working with, which is Poverty Alliance. They have a research project over 3 years in relation to the rural premium that those experiencing financial insecurity experience. We know, again, that is a very big issue for us in Aberdeenshire. So to have the Poverty Alliance research project working in Aberdeenshire is going to be incredibly helpful for us, and we will use the information that comes out of that to support a number of the pieces of work that we have got planned over the coming years. It absolutely ties into the Reducing Poverty action plan, which is our Child Poverty Action Plan. So some real positives there. One positive that I've not mentioned in the report, but I just want to remind the board of, is we do have a childcare review research underway at the moment. That is due to complete in this month, and we would be looking to bring the outcomes from that research back to the board and to partners in January, February. So one of the things I almost want to trail with the board today is at the next meeting I would be looking to get a bit of a steer and support from the board around how partners, given all of us around this table are big employers, we have substantial numbers of officers working for us, staff, how will we as employers be looking to support current employees, potential employees around that affordable childcare piece, and we'll bring the research to you to allow that discussion to happen. So a bit of a heads up that will be a focus for the Tackling Poverty report next time. But one of the key things in the report this time that I would seek some direction on is in relation to our information and advice services framework. The board will be aware that we have got a framework in place that is a five-year framework, and we are just heading into year 5, so it is the right time to review that framework. That information and advice services framework currently is a mix of commission services, so we have a consortium of citizens advice bureaus providing community information and advice, but we also have embedded officers within a number of our trusted partners, a number of our partners that are around this table, where we have got welfare rights specialists working directly with the partners and their customers to support maximising income and dealing with some of the challenges of financial insecurity. So we are at the moment in the information evidence gathering stage within the report at the Appendix 3. There is the timeline for the review so that you can see where we are. We are looking to be able to come back to the board and Communities Committee in March, April to allow us plenty of time. If we are looking to commission more services, we want to have enough time to do that. But I'd be really keen to get a steer from partners around the table. What do you think should be the focus of our information and advice services framework in its next iteration? What is coming through from your staff, your employees, your customers? What are the challenges? We know what we're seeing coming through the advice framework from those who are using it is we are seeing a real challenge around personal debt. We are seeing that income and maximisation. It's becoming increasingly more challenging because we are maximising folks' income as much as we can. So I'd be really keen to hear, what do you think we need to have in that framework that would best support families experiencing poverty, and we will bring that back around the table as part of our next report to you. So really just that open question to the table.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Can I take in Councillor Reynolds, please?
Hi, Amanda. Thanks very much for that. One thing that occurs, which I've raised in other forum, and in terms of the remit that you're talking about here, crisis grants and winter payments and so forth. I'm trying to ascertain where things are slipping through the net in terms of unsuccessful applicants for the likes of that. And I guess this applies across the board. And so my question really within what your remit is talking about there, Amanda, is sort of nuancing that advice and that guidance so that people are not unsuccessful if there are ways and means that they're not made to be unsuccessful in terms of the applications that they make to the council and elsewhere. We have very good statistics, you know, across the piece in terms of engagement with claimants, but it's those people that slip through the net, and doing something about that when they're often the most vulnerable people in the harshest of circumstances. Amanda, thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Reynolds. I think you're absolutely right. There is something around the framework that we need to think about is how do we ensure we are hitting those, that's the wrong phrase, I appreciate, but how do we ensure we are engaged or have a way to engage with those people who either aren't coming forward for whatever reason, or when they do come forward, they're just above where they would need to be in order to access. So absolutely pick up that more nuanced approach, and I suppose that is reflecting now the complexity of what we are seeing coming through. It isn't just one debt or one issue, it's a whole combination of issues. So how do we have that very holistic approach? So yep, absolutely, we'll take that forward as one of the things we need to think about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other views around the table around the information and advice, what you're seeing out within communities, what you're seeing within your own employees and teams? Is there anything to feed back around that? Or are we content that Amanda is hitting the nail on the head with this one? Susan.
I think just to echo what Amanda has already said, that it absolutely is around cost of living, income maximisation, and how we connect and support. I guess there is an increasing feedback around the stigma for people who find themselves newly into poverty, and the ability to open up to individuals to get support, I think is again a challenge that we're coming across. I think from our perspective, and I'll just say it before any other partner does, our information governance is getting in the way, because it's really hard then to see who's referred and what impact that has had. So I think that's absolutely work in progress. I think the second bit that would be really helpful to connect in, so our Health Point service is providing a lot of support around this supported self-management agenda. So I think they're complementary, but perhaps when we're Amanda's undertaking this review, if we could work hand by hand, we can just absolutely make sure that they are complementary services. In addition to drop-in, part of pathways, they're also doing proactive outbound calls to those who are waiting on our waiting list through an initiative called Waiting Well. So again, we may be identifying individuals who are in contact with the health service and not many other services that could benefit from the support that Amanda's outlined.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. That tie across, I think, very, very useful. Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, sorry to come back again. I think Susan's absolutely right in terms of the stigma side of things, and in relation to that, Amanda, it's sort of reaching out to the older demographic, where I think this is particularly an issue surrounding things like pension credit and so forth. So I think that's often missed. I think there's a substantial amount of money that is available that's never claimed, and probably because of stigma. Thanks.
Thank you both. Absolutely. That Health Point, those advisors are another route in. Susan, that's that, any door should be the right door. So more than happy to ensure they're involved in this early stage so that we see how they can help shape this and how we complement and hopefully enhance. And absolutely, Councillor Reynolds, I think that older demographic has always traditionally been that challenge, and it's something about that pride piece. We've often spoken about how we support through the youth, and we're doing a lot of work at the moment through that youth piece and the work that they are doing to approach that stigma. But you're right, we can't lose sight of our older people who there's a different approach we need to take. So again, that is absolutely something I will pick up as part of our thinking for how this framework looks going forward.
I think part of that, Amanda, as you all know far better than me, but it's like it's reaching out almost or accessing people within the support network, the family network of the older people that can actually ensure that their friends and loved ones are actually helped and assisted and guided towards obtaining those benefits that otherwise they might not engage with.
See Amanda nodding, so she's picked that one up. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you, Susan, for your input there as well. Amanda, do you need anything more from the group, or does that give you enough to take away and carry on with that review process?
That's enough for me to take away, but if anyone does think of anything when they come out away from this, please just email me. More than happy to pick anything up.
Absolutely, thank you. These conversations don't end here. They are very much ongoing and live, so anything that anyone does want to feedback, anything that comes through your workplaces or indeed through your communities, please just feed that through. That'd be very helpful. Okay, thank you, Amanda. That takes us round to place, and we have Paul McCarry to give us an update around place.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. Where are we with place and development of the place strategy? We have been through our engagement. We've been through around the workshops, around actually how we draft and what approach we take, and I can now confirm that we have drafted an Aberdeenshire place policy rather than a strategy. And as we move forward from there, we've identified two key issues. The first one is actually how do we resource the teams within Aberdeenshire to work with our communities and work with our partners to start to create those place plans as such. So those plans for our places and ensure that we're capturing the aspiration and concerns of communities, the challenges communities face, the places face, and ensuring that we're moving forward in a direction that ensures that there's clear actions as to how we address those challenges from the community, our third sector, and obviously our partners that are on the call today, as well as some of the challenges that we face in terms of service delivery. The other challenge that we face is actually how we prioritise the places that would be the subject of the place plans and the timetable for delivery. So ensuring that we have the resources in place, ensuring that we're focusing on the right places to prioritise, and equally ensuring that there's a timetable in place for us to prioritise and deliver on our ambitions around place policy. The ambition moving forward is to complete the drafting and resolve the challenges as we get into January, and then report back to full council in due course to have the policy approved, and equally making sure that we engage with the Community Planning Partnership and IGB on the way. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Paul, for that. So Reynolds, please.
Thanks for that, Paul. Paul, I was at a community council. I was actually observing at a community council last night, and one of the things that arose on their agenda was the basic question of whether they should or shouldn't actually engage with formulating a community place plan. And in essence, they were saying, what's in it for us if we do this, as distinct from a community action plan, which they seem to know about. So I think there's a piece of work there in terms of communicating with community councils in terms of why they should be doing this, and I mean, I did my best as explaining why, but I think that, you know, as I say, I was just observing in this particular community council. It wasn't within my own ward patch, but do you see what I mean? There seems to be, I wonder how prevalent this is, because there's some confusion as to what's in it for them, essentially, in terms of what could be a piece of work. How would that relate to their community, which in this case was quite a small rural community? What, you know, is it something that applies to them? Is it something that will help them? I can think of other areas within my own patch, like Foggy, for example, Aberdeensire, where they'll be asking the same sort of question. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be clear in the terminology. So I think the place policy and the creation of place plans under the place policy, I think relates to probably the larger settlements, and I think we'll have community action plans and local place plans under the Planning Act for those more rural and remote settlements. What I'd say is I think they're all important, and I think if the communities want to create a vision for their place and identify what they'd like to see happen or address some of the challenges that they have, then as you know, as we move forward to create the next local development plan under the Planning Act, we need to take that into account. But equally, as a decision-making authority, we need to take into account the material considerations and coming to decisions. And so if we're going to make decisions that are going to impact on a place, then it's only natural that we'd be taking into account the vision for that place to make sure that we don't contradict it, or that we don't create further challenges for that community in undertaking our decisions as we move forward as an organisation, but equally recognising the impact that decisions we make as an organisation, how it impacts on the community, the third sector and our partners that are on the call. So I think if the community has an aspiration, by all means they can get in contact with me directly and I'll pass them on to one of the team around local place plans. But if it's around community action plans, then they should be able to contact the area team for advice and guidance on that. What I would say is the website has been updated with advice and guidance as to community action plans and local place plans under the Planning Act as well. So there's good advice and guidance available to communities, and equally there's staff on hand to provide that guidance to should they get in contact with us directly. Thanks.
I think it's just on that piece, Paul, about why place plans and local place plans are not pertinent to smaller communities.
They're not pertinent. No, I think they are though.
I thought you said it only applies to larger settlements or larger communities.
Well, you'd imagine that our larger communities in Aberdeenshire, we don't have strategies for them. We'll have, a proliferation of strategies under different services, under different service providers. So the idea that we create a single vision for a place allows us to group our resources and allows us to deliver on all fronts, as opposed to spreading ourselves thinly, depending on the aspiration of the community group, the partner, the service provider, etc. So some of the visioning that we have under the council's place policy, under an Aberdeenshire place policy, is to look at the bigger settlements, primary settlements, or academy towns, for example. That's a prioritisation piece I'm referring to. How do you decide which settlement you focus on and how you prioritise on? The smaller settlements, it's recognising that community action, most of them already have community action plans in place, and it's how we start to build upon that and review them, recognising that our resources as an organisation are diminishing all the time. How do we then rely upon the resources that we'll have across the full community, third sector partners on the call, to work with communities to deliver on their ambitions?
Okay, I do have, I'll come back to you on it, Paul, but it seems to me that some of our rural isolated villages, which are quite vulnerable, not least, we've seen this through the pandemic and all the rest of it. I think that they might feel, especially when they're really struggling at the moment, that if they're not involved in this broader policy of place, then that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but they are involved in the broader conversation around place, because the local development plan is effectively our place plan for Aberdeenshire, if you like. And so every community in Aberdeenshire has the opportunity to engage, every person, every resident, every business, even those who don't live in Aberdeenshire have the opportunity to get involved in the LDP process. So it's ensuring that those channels of communication remain fully open to our communities, I think, is the challenge.
Okay. Well, that hits the key point. There was a community council last night that didn't know what it meant, didn't know why they should engage. So that's a communication part to a small village that feels isolated and left out. Anyway, I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you, Paul. I do think there is that point in terms of we need to make sure we're getting the comms right around some of this to ensure that communities do understand what's in it for them. They do see that ownership and real influence and input from being part of this process. Hopefully some of that comes through the next two sessions we've got on the agenda here around Fraserburgh and around Inverurie, and how that's been put out to the communities and how we've had that shared ownership of what we're doing and how we're taking things forward. But I think those comms around it are really key, so that communities do absolutely understand the influence and the power that this gives them, and how this helps develop localism as well, and local services. So I think all of those points are really key. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. So coming on to John.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a similar theme, I think, but in a positive way, is getting to this stage where if the policy is going to be approved, then we need to work out how we engage with it. And so I'm representing IJB here. That's relatively straightforward because it's based on the same geographic area, and then we can work out what it means for us. Thinking also with an NHS hat on, there may be a different picture of place in Aberdeenshire, the city in Moray, and place is a theme strongly for NHS, but it's not joined up yet. So what do you envisage in the early months of 2024 that we can do to help stimulate that coming together, the joining up of that focus? Because I can see it in the next two reports where we try and engage around particular areas, but it's trying to get the policies, if you like, right at a organizational level, so that we do join it up when we're talking about place. Is there any guidance on that?
Yeah, I think as we move forward and we get to the point of the policy is approved, it's recognising there has to be a strong common strategy around that to make sure all the partners are together and aligned, and how we move forward with the development of place plans, but equally to make sure that we continue to I suppose reinvest and that services, communities, partners are continue to invest in place and the creation of these plans, because effectively if we don't create that buy-in, that ownership, we don't create the motivation to deliver, then it will diminish, and as a policy it would feel and it's a missed opportunity for us to drive improvement across all our communities.
Okay, I think that's welcome, but I think it needs some tangible kind of touch points for it, or bits of framework that join up, so that it's not just talking about the concept. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Paul. Susan.
Yeah, no, thank you. I wonder, I'm maybe picking up on John's point. I guess there's something about making sure that all of us as partners on this partnership have ownership of the policy, so it's not seen as Aberdeenshire Council policy that we're supporting with, that this is our collective, this is what we want to do. And so happy to have a conversation offline as to so how would we take it in through NHS structures so that we're aware of and ensuring that, I think often it's language, because I think the principles are the same, but making sure that we've got at least common language around the different boundaries that we share with partners. I guess my second point was also going to flag that, you know, if we look at the Christie report, when Christie was talking about communities and working with communities, he was talking of population sizes of 1,500, so much smaller. So I think we shouldn't forget that. So this approach is as valuable and helpful for small communities as it is for bigger areas that are often made up of different communities within those bigger populations.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Paul, anything you want to come back on around that?
No. Once I socialise and circulate the policy, you'll see that there is that we're capturing. We're not just focusing on the primary settlements, the larger settlements, where it's a kind of catch-all policy, and there's provision made for those wider settlements as well as the small rural and remote settlements too.
Thanks, Paul. And delivering for communities and delivering place, very much that partnership piece, rather than us doing it individually or doing it with slightly different language around it, which, as you say, will just confuse communities, and ultimately we need to make sure we're breaking down those barriers. Okay, I don't see any more indications. Thank you very much, Paul, for taking us through that. That takes us very nicely on to Angela and Laura. Welcome, both.
Good afternoon, folks. This report provides an update on the Shaping Places work. It's been on the go for just over a year now, so we're happy to come and provide this update. I'm going to hand over to Laura, who's the brains of this work, and she'll give you the detailed overview of the report. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks for asking us to provide an update. So I have presented to the partnership before when the project was just up and running, and luckily we have made some progress over the last year. So just to outline, give a brief overview, the report outlined the focus of the work. So it's a national programme that's been implemented in 7 project towns across Scotland, with Fraserburgh being the only one that is up in the northeast, and also with it being the only one that has its structure embedded within the local authority. So all the other project towns are embedded in the improvement service. So the programme's looking to help reduce inequalities in the specific project towns, and to do that by implementing a place-based approach based on a framework that identifies the place and wellbeing outcomes that have been evidenced to support what a place needs to be to encourage health, wellbeing and reduce inequalities. So we've undertaken a number of key pieces of work since I started in post. Predominantly, we developed a data profile along with colleagues in Public Health Scotland to help inform the work and to help direct the conversations. So that profile started immediately last year, and alongside that we set up a steering group. I'm lucky that some of the members are on this group as well. So the steering group governs the works, sort of directs and approves the things that are identified as being key targets and focuses for the work in Fraserburgh. So we've initially scoped out the policies, strategies, plans that impacted on Fraserburgh either at a local level or a regional level, trying to identify where we wanted to assess those strategies and identify if they could better support a place-based approach and help to reduce inequalities and support health and wellbeing. So we undertook that piece of work across the whole of Aberdeenshire, so looking at policies, strategies, plans, both within the council but also within other community planning partner organisations to identify where we could potentially have an influence. We looked at developing the data profile, so that initially was just a quantitative piece of work, but with the employment of the community link lead who started in September, the qualitative piece around that has developed further as well, which has been fantastic because that's been important to understand the context of the things that were identified in the quantitative profile. And with those 2 pieces of work sort of cemented and moving forward, we began our place and wellbeing assessment. So to date, we've conducted 3 assessments. We carried out the first one on the Fraserburgh beachfront master plan, so a very local level. So that was our initial assessment. The report was developed and recommendations outlined as to how to ensure that place is fully embedded in that proposed plan. The next assessment that we did was on the Aberdeenshire Health and Social Care Partnership Strategic Plan. So we carried out the assessment on the current strategic plan with the vision that obviously that will be updated in 2025 and that process is going to start early next year. So were there any recommendations that could help to embed place a little bit more within that strategic plan? So the report was developed and again recommendations came out of that report. And most recently we did a place and wellbeing assessment on the merger of the Fraserburgh primary schools. And that assessment took a slightly different format because we used the opportunity to compare it to the integrated impact assessment process as well. So that report's still being written up, it's in its final stages and recommendations have been developed. Feedback from all of the assessments has been good so far. If nothing else, the conversations around that have been hugely valued by all partners involved in the assessment process. Too early to update on the output from the recommendations, but I'm hoping that we'll identify some that can be moved forward quite quickly. Others will take a lot more time and strategic sort of decisions in order to move those and progress those. None of them are statutory. The recommendations don't have to be moved forward, but if you want to align these documents and plans to place, these are the key ways that we would identify to do it. The feedback from the school assessment was fantastic. Comparing it to the integrated impact assessment, it was identified how much that assessment would have sped up some of the processes involved in reviewing what to do with school closures, school mergers and new developments of schools. So we're really happy that that was the feedback from the Learning Estates team, and looking to see if there's further opportunities to support that team with some of the decisions they've got to make more broadly around other schools in the area as well. We've also continued to support and develop networks, so trying to share the learning from Fraserburgh. So it's very specific to Fraserburgh, the work that we've done in terms of the data profiles, the qualitative data, the assessments, but the learning is not specific to Fraserburgh. The learning can be applied more broadly into practices, into different areas, into different organisations. And so we've been taking any opportunity possible to try and share that learning across different platforms as well. And that's been really well received so far. At a recent event at Haddo House, which I know a number of people were at, it was the key takeaway from the Director for Strategy and Performance for Public Health Scotland. His 3 takeaways, one of the key ones was the shaping places for wellbeing work, and how that offers an opportunity to link services and partners together for a place-based approach. So that was really good feedback as well. In terms of the work, though, just to set out, the key concerns are around whether we can continue to share that learning. The programme at a national level is being extended. It was due to end in March 2024, but Public Health Scotland are supporting the continuation in the other 6 towns. Beyond that, however, we sit differently, as I said at the start, and our work will conclude in August next year for Fraserburgh, and any potential shared learning further than that as well. I think that's everything at this point, but happy to take any questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Laura, does anybody have any questions or comments? John?
Yeah, what's the reality of this? Because it feels understandably that there's a need to put some resource in to be able to get something like this moving, and you're raising that point about the problem of it ceasing. Then there's the other side of it, which is agencies tend to go into communities themselves, so there's multiple resources diving about. So on that basis, if that's coordinated, maybe there's some savings. So it's just what kind of learning's coming out of this in terms of resourcing it, especially in the context of the severe financial pressures that partners currently face? Thank you.
Thanks, John. Laura, do you want to input on that one?
I'm just looking, I don't know whether Angela wants to answer that one first or me.
Yeah, I can come in. I couldn't get my mouse to move, it froze on the screen there. It's a really good question. I think this is a test of change, essentially, and it's a different cultural approach to place-based thinking. So it is very high level and strategic at that initial concept, but it does rely on people pushing that forward. It relies on that being one of the tools around the assessment needs to flow through all the activities, not just at a council level, but a partnership level, but right through top to bottom through the whole organisation. So it's a concept and it is a cultural change, absolutely. So I think for it to have a really huge impact, it needs to be consistently considered as part of that place-based thinking, and almost needs to sit at that corporate strategic level. And then it's for organisations to then embed the approach around the assessments into their day core activity. And I think once that's fully embedded, the resource implications are less, because it becomes core activity within services, and it embeds in our thinking around that place-based lens. At the moment, Laura's 12, 18 months, Laura, and it's been really helpful for her to be embedded within the local authority. I would say we've shaved at least 3 to 6 months off the work that's been done in other project times, because I suppose she had my knowledge of contacts and already embedded within the local authority structure with the key links back to the community planning board and also the local community planning group contacts at that local level. So in terms of the resource, I think longer term it wouldn't be as to get it started, it needs that resource, absolutely. But once it's embedded as a core function, I think, and established into the way that place-based thinking needs to occur, then I think the resource implications are far less.
Okay, thanks. Can I come back?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's just, I think there is a discussion to be had around this to, and if people are working differently in, as in the services, I can see how that can make a difference, well, is needed to make the difference. And there's also the resource issues by actually working more effectively in communities, maybe spending less because we're not picking up so many problems, etc. But I do think we would need to move from the kind of principles of how that might operate to something collectively across partners to make this look different in the future. And I'm just going from sort of past experience as well, and good intent around this. And Christy was the starting point of a lot of that. I think there's a piece of work that we need to be able to address, and any learning that comes specifically will be great, but it's probably a bit bigger as a piece of work. That's my gut feel for it, because this is so important for going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, John. It does feel that I was going to use the word integration. I'm not sure it's quite integration, but really close working around this to ensure that we really get it right, to ensure we remove duplication, to ensure that we're really working across all partners on it is so critical to its success longer term. Susan.
Thanks, Rob. I was going to say I think it is integration, actually, because that is what communities tell us, that we all come in and really what we're seeking is to develop that ongoing engagement, which I think is what Laura is setting out. What it requires is for us to do things very differently. So I think John's call is really important, that we probably do need to start some early conversations about how we ensure that we maintain the lessons and build on the lessons that have come about through this work.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Philippa.
Thanks. I just wanted to, I suppose, come in and speak about my experience being part of the steering group for Shaping Places. And it's been really valuable, I think, to use a model. So we talk about, place a lot, and we've got a couple of different tests of change, a couple of different sort of pilots. And it's been really, really useful for me to actually experience a process and to follow that through, kind of see how it would work. And it's really helped to develop my and the partnerships thinking around, for instance, this concept of a community hub, and what does that mean, and how does that look? And I think, Susan, you're absolutely right. It is about integration. And when we integrated health and social care, however many years ago, we concentrated so much at that time because it was necessary, but integrating health and social care. But there was always the community bit that we hadn't sort of quite got to. And this feels just really helpful in terms of developing our thinking around the place approach, about how are we integrating our health and social care services with community groups, with third sector, and essentially developing those places which are really good for people to live in that sort of much broader sense. And there are absolute efficiencies, if we want to look at it even from that point of view, in terms of kind of budgets and finances, just because we're working better together. And I mean that it's a long road, so won't get too carried away, but it really has been quite helpful on a practical level to kind of see how we might make this work. Thanks.
Thank you, Philippa. Laura, let's come in.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Philippa. Really good to hear that feedback as a member of the steering group as well. I think it's important, just on the point about shared learning as well, to recognise that there's the shared learning from what's happening in Fraserburgh, but also we feed into the project in the other 6 towns. So part of the project nationally is the shared learning across those 7 towns, including Fraserburgh, and there's huge takeaway from the learning of it. And one of the key things that comes out is around integration, but about partnership working, and how the approach that's been taken by Shaping Places has elevated that partnership working because it's provided common language. As Philippa said, it provides like a framework, it opens up discussions and provides clarity for people that all want to take a place-based approach. So that's been consistent across all 7 towns, that it's brought people together to have the conversation with a language that everyone understands, which makes for clearer output or direction from those conversations as well. In a lot of cases, that's around sort of thinking about that prevention, the preventative work that needs to be done longer term, and whether decisions can be made that might not have immediate returns, but long term we know are going to be beneficial for our communities, which are beneficial for the impact on the health and social care services as well. So it offers that opportunity, but also it's making sure that the context of things are understood at that local level. So thinking about the discussion with earlier that Councillor Reynolds raised around the smaller settlements and their involvement in local place plans and things like that, it's allowing for the context of these very specific places to be understood by that local knowledge and qualitative information as well. So, you know, already when I first started in post was very clear that the data that the council holds was really aligned to what the Public Health Scotland were developing in terms of our quantitative data profile, and that was brilliant, and continues to be, you know, something that's recognised by the Public Health Scotland's list team, that we have a good set of data for Aberdeenshire, and that should be recognised, and we should develop that and identify how can we use that to help to pick out key inequalities, but then understanding the local context that just because 2 places are both experiencing poverty doesn't mean they're experiencing it in the same way. And that's where the programme also allows for that conversation to be had as well, because they're not experiencing it the same way, which means that partners can't address it in the same way. So it allows for, you know, a framework and a common language, but then also the specific individual context, which is important for place planning as well.
Thanks, Laura. I think that's really important to highlight, that it's the context of each community that is so vital, and we will see from what we move on to next that what we're doing in Fraserburgh is slightly different from what we're doing in Inverurie, and that's absolutely fine. And it's about ensuring that we have that tie back into the wider piece of work as well that Paul spoke through earlier, and that we're really clear how all the pieces in the jigsaw fit together. I think that's absolutely vital, but getting it right for each community is the key thing and the most important thing, and how we do that and how we deliver our services, and that, as has been said, that integration of services to ensure that we do that is absolutely important as well, and we need to all work really hard across partnership to ensure that we're doing that together. I don't see any other comments or questions. Thank you, Laura, for taking us through that. That's been really useful. Thank you, Angela, as well. We'll move on to Inverurie, and Anne Overton is with us to take us through the Inverurie piece. Anne is the area manager for Geary. Anne.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, board. Thank you very much for hearing the report today. Thank you very much for contributing in terms of the financial cost of this project that was started in very early 2023. I'm hoping that the report speaks for itself, but I will do a quick summary. So in the first half of 2023, over 30 public, community and private sector partners started to collaborate on a place-based approach for Inverurie. We undertook a holistic view of local needs. We identified community-driven approaches for future service delivery, all with a focus on living well locally. We also identified a range of opportunities for development and delivery. Additionally, there's recognition of key benefits from the approach, including that the place-based approach is also a tool for transformation. And as Paul McCarry very clearly set out earlier, there are other benefits in terms of council service delivery, our partner service delivery, and about the alignment of resources, which should be, include better use of the public pound. So benefits and in terms of the outcomes of the Inverurie place-based approach, there was agreement on what place means locally. There was that space for stakeholders to consider the challenges and the priorities for Inverurie. There was clarity, there was communication on the groups and councils and other partners' plans for Inverurie. We agreed a shared narrative, and we explored a future Inverurie, a vision for Inverurie. So there was some consensus on priority actions, and it also recognised that Inverurie is a strategic hub, and it serves a wider population than the residents. It has a large daytime population, and it serves a large area of Aberdeenshire for in many ways. So in terms of outcomes, we had some quick wins. We had those really local conversations start to happen between, for instance, our Skills Development Scotland and NESCOL about delivering a theme that came out in terms of a local learning corridor. What opportunities were there to collaborate? We have got our groups working together in terms of, for instance, delivery of a sports forum, so that communication increases and they can share information, knowledge, and work together. We've got a great sporting spirit within Inverurie, lots of really great clubs, and they've got lots of projects they want to take forward. So we wanted to eliminate that pulling against each other, but working together. We're creating a directory of services and spaces in the town. It's hosted by our Inverurie events colleagues in the SKIO. We have a town team that is now set up. We've done some mapping around funding opportunities, and we've also recognised a pipeline of projects that are coming through, so we can access those big funds that are coming through, such as Shared Prosperity Fund and the place-based investment. So and behind those applications to those funding is that golden thread that comes from the place-based review and the place-based approach. We've also got some developing opportunities that are coming through. We've got Pathfinder projects around transportation and our town hall and our town centre. We have we're working closely with Health and Social Care Partnership on the concept of a community wellbeing hub being scoped out, and we also have ongoing work around our governance, how we work with the local community planning group, how we work with the umbrella community SKIO, how that works together, that empowerment piece for our communities, what they can get on and do, and how that works within the context of the outcomes of the place-based approach. So we've got some ongoing projects as well. We're working with our local schools. We focus on 3 schools, Kellens and Port Elphinstone, mainly because that's the highest SMID within Inverurie. And we're working with a Place in Childhood team and Aberdeen Fairer World, and we are talking to our children in those schools about their ideas for 20-minute neighbourhoods, and they're going to work with the Inverurie Town team in January at World Cafe, and that will really segue into the outputs from the Inverurie place-based approach, and we're going to do that assessment in January. So there's lots of ongoing work at the moment, and I suppose, bearing in mind we've had Paul McCarry on the agenda, we've had Angela and Laura as well. This was also a test of change. This was also a huge learning opportunity for us as a local authority and also as a community planning partnership. And there are some key lessons which we take into the development of the place policy. I'm really pleased to hear the comments from the board today around the commitment from with our community planning partners, both at a strategic level and I would hope as well as a local community planning group level, because I think there's room there to look at the governance piece, and there's room to look at how we all work together, and also there's our lessons there around local leadership, collective ownership coming through. We are also need to take into account that the work I've done here isn't a council plan, it's a community plan. There's a very much a bottom-up approach, but we've had such great engagement from across our community planning partners, with our third sector partners and our community, and that is key to how we have been able to get this far within this process, and that has to continue. So that movement from collective leadership into collective ownership, and that is what we're working on now through our town team. We are working on our next phase in terms of working further with the residents and communities of Inverurie, and that is what part of our phase 2. As part of this, we've also learnt that clarity and that relevant messaging is also very important, that accessibility piece. So when we are going to go out, people have to understand what we're doing. We need to raise awareness, and we also have to manage expectations, and that is also a key part of it. So I'm very happy to answer questions today. I appreciate that there's a lot to the report, and I have set out in the appendix in terms of phase 2 some ongoing work that is mainly around looking at capacity, looking at the delivery programme, refining the project portfolio, and also working with the community in terms of their capacity for delivery as well. So thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Anne. That's really helpful. And I think the papers really highlight the amount of work that's gone on there and the amount of inputs there's been across everybody, so community and partnership around this one. And these are, well, they may be slightly different approaches to something, which is right because the communities are different, and they are very much built from that community perspective, and then the partnership on top of that in terms of how we can deliver for them. And I think really, really good pieces of work. Angela, Laura and Anne around all these. I think it's been fantastic. It's really good to see what's coming out of those and all partners that have played a part in that as well. Really, really good to see this coming through. So thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Anne around the Inverurie work? Susan.
Thank you. Really great to hear the update. It wasn't so much a question, but just a reflection. And you were talking about clearly the importance of engagement and leadership. And we were reviewing the Marmot cities work with Sir Michael last week, and when asked what were the two key engagements or two key factors to the success of the Marmot cities work, it was charismatic leadership and community engagement. So there you go, commonality across local activity and national work.
Thank you, Susan. Good to hear.
Brilliant. I'm not seeing any other comments. I think, as I say, oh, John, come in.
Yeah, I think just for me, it's a really good piece of work. It just emphasizes that point earlier about being able to resource this in a way. So learning from this and how we can carry that forward. I mean, here there was a consultant that came in, and the implication is that without that, it wouldn't be what it is today, kind of thing. So it is being able to have that catalyst, and it's so that's just emphasizing that again. It's really good to see the sustainability, environmental sustainability theme come through so strongly, and be knitted into it. So just wanted to pass on that observation. Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Yes, I think the consultants really added to this one. It's been really useful to have their perspective around it, their inputs, their lead around some of this work, and it is a challenge in terms of how we take learning from this and resource some of this across the board as well. There is always that challenge around capacity for this type of work, but it is so important as to how we move forwards as a partnership. So I think it's about finding the capacity to ensure that we can do it. Don't see any other hands, so with that, I think that takes us to the end of the agenda. Thank you very much, Anne, for that. That's been really useful to see that coming through. We just have the date of the next meeting, which is the 6th of March. Does anybody have anything else they want to raise? Jim.
Thanks, Rob. For my sins, I think I have graciously been taking on an interim and potentially longer-term basis the chairing of the North East Population Health Alliance meeting, which colleagues in the partnership will be very familiar with, and actually it's peppered through much of our agenda. And I think that reflects the alignment in terms of the importance of population health matters for our communities and therefore our focus as a CPP. I haven't discussed it with Susan yet, so she can kick me through the airwaves sort of on this one as well. I'd be very keen to add to the very strong public health team who are supporting the chair of the Population Health Alliance in drawing together the agenda and the work for the Alliance to add representatives from each of the CPPs, because I think that would really strengthen the alignment and the coordination of the work we're doing as well, and make sure that we have that bottom-up approach from our local communities and our CPPs into the Population Health Alliance. So just wanted to flag and raise that one for the partnership to say that was my thinking, and happy to take that one off table after this conversation meeting to do some more work with Chair, with Councillor Sterling and with other colleagues to see whether that is an approach that would work, and if so, how we make that linkage work as well. Conscious we've got the ESEC in place already, and so it's not as though we are short of mechanisms, but we're just wanting to make sure that that alliance and a partnership is working in a way that we as a CPP want and need it to, and that we are actively leading and contributing to the agenda of the work that we want to be working on a broader basis with other parties across the region, and also with colleagues in Public Health Scotland as well. I trust that makes sense. I just wanted to flag and raise it. Susan's been nodding so far, so I think I've got away with that one, but they're happy to follow through after that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Makes perfect sense. Thank you for flagging, and we will pick that up off table. Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to apologise for my tardiness. So I messaged Adam Caldwell. So he sends his apologies for today, but he is hoping to join the CPP at the next meeting. And again, if it is helpful, happy to continue where Caroline started in terms of the vice chair. But absolutely, just putting that out there, and I'll let you pick that up with him offline if that's helpful. So apologies, I should have checked that before coming into the meeting today.
No, thank you for raising, and I see Anne has put in the chat there that she will pick that up with Adam, so I'll leave that between the chair and Adam to take that one forward. Thank you very much. Okay, I see no more hands, so thank you all very much for your input. It's been a really good discussion today, really helpful, so thank you and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.